Good morning, happy party people. How are you? Welcome to YouTube Live Thursdays. Today I am talking about identity. I was watching a YouTube video and I heard someone speak about sort of losing weight, getting in shape. And they said, it's probably better that it happens slow because it gives you time to sort of adapt to a new identity. And that really struck me. And so I wanted to talk about that a bit today because there's a lot there. I think the starting point for that would be this notion of, one of my most popular videos is sort of how to reset your wealth thermostat. Right. And that speaks to the sort of conditioning of our systems. We have a sort of idea about ourselves that's fixed, and it's hard to change that. So the human organism really likes stasis. It likes things to stay the same and be predictable and know what's coming. If you think about the human body, and your monkey mind and all that, it's a constant threat detection system. So you're at a party and what's she thinking about me? What's he thinking about me? Do they like my car? These things, these are the modern day threats. Am I going to fit in? In olden days, they used to, the way that people would be killed is they would be excommunicated from the tribe. That's how, because there is no life without the tribe. And so that's where we come from. We come from this sort of tribe place. And when you were a child, right? So if you go back to our ancestors, right? It's important to be liked. It's important to be seen. It's important to be memorable from a very young age, because if you think about our tribal history, if marauders come in the middle of the night and your entire tribe has to pick up and move in the middle of the night, then you want to be memorable. You want to be liked. You don't want to be left behind. And so that in our modern society, fitting in, being acceptable to others, being liked is the biggest threats to our survival, so to speak, right? And if you look, that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's trying to sort of be loved by the masses, etc. Or they're trying to be safe. They're trying to make enough money. So establishing that the human organism, right, which is separate and apart from your spirit, which inhabits the body, because when you leave, the body is still there, right? So there's the body and its life. And obviously nobody really understands the connection between our spirit and how it fills this body and all of that. That's outside the scope of what we're talking about today, although that's a fascinating question. But we know that after the spirit leaves the body is kind of like done. But the body does a lot of things that we don't tell it to do. So the body has a mind of its own, so to speak, right? And so it's doing things, and what it's doing in a large part is protecting us, for the most part. So, and the way that it protects us is this stasis. And so let's take this idea of being wealthy. So I know for me, back in my 40s, when I was turning 40, that I wasn't living up to my potential. I wasn't earning as much as I could. Like the highest I'd earned to that point was, $50,000 in a year. And I knew that I was capable of more deep down. But good morning. But I had this identity of I'm a loser who's not fulfilling his potential. So that was my idea of myself. And I kept true to that. And the reason I kept true to that was because That's what worked for me. So understand that the environment that you survived when you were a child is the environment that you're conditioned to. And what we end up doing, and we usually don't realize it, is we keep reliving the emotional environment of our childhood. Isn't that kind of crazy? And if you really look critically, you'll see that this is the case. Now, it doesn't look the same, right? The sexes may change, the situations may seem different, but what you'll find is the emotional environment is the same. You're having the same feelings that you had when you were 4 and 5. And so what most people don't realize about money is that their fear of money, actually, I have a perfect example. I worked with somebody the other day, and they're having this sort of constant, persistent money trouble, where at the end of the month, there's always these unexpected expenses, like these calamities that happen that that pull them, that make them just short. And the fear, of course, is I'm not going to make it. Like I'm going to die, right? That's the fear. That's the fear that she's constantly living in. Okay. So the fear is, this is it. I'm going to die, right? And I said, how long has this been going on? And she said, 30 years. That is a really big signal. So you're like on the precipice, but never falling over for 30 years. So clearly the system enjoys being on the precipice of disaster, not actual disaster, but right on the edge. That's where that particular nervous system is comfortable. Do you see? That's where the thermostat is set, being in danger. And so we did a little work more recently about that to discover, well, why is that living in fear the place that's comfortable for your body? And we went back to when she was 4 years old. And, she woke up and her father was screaming at her mother, and her father was like a rageful drunk. And she lied there in bed, terrified. And we had to do a little work to see that those are the exact same feelings. The financial feelings of today are the exact same feelings as the lying in bed, terrified at 4 years old of my mother's going to be hurt and I'm next. And so even though those situations don't look anything alike, even though we're talking about a grown woman dealing with financial issues that looks nothing like the past, what we're really dealing with is a 4-year-old lying in bed, terrified that her father's going to hurt her or her mother, right? So that when you're really finding out what's really going on with the human being, you have to include the past, because the past is intruding on the present. So when we get to this notion of identity, so we'll come back to this notion of this experience of me. So here I am, I'm 40 years old. I've only made $50,000. And I realized that I have a problem. I worked on it in Debtors Anonymous, dealing with my, what I called under earning, right? That's how I dealt with it. But really what it was an identity shift. I didn't believe that I was somebody who could be successful. And so I had to do all this spiritual work, and that's the work that we do in our community. And I didn't understand it at the time, and I understand it so much better now. So many things where I look back and I go, I see now what was happening, and I couldn't see it then. And I use the steps, which I'm a huge, huge fan of. If you can find your way into any 12-step program, I recommend it. But for people who don't identify with those kinds of things, that we've got my program and the work that I do here, right, which is kind of taking all my experience from that and everything else that I've learned, and in some ways going deeper than we normally would in the steps. So this whole identity shift, this is a crazy thing. So it turns out it's more important. So in terms of building wealth, let's say, or building physical fitness, it's like when you're out of shape, when you're overweight, it's hard to feel like physically fit. most people think when I get fit, I'll feel better. But they don't realize that starting to change their identity and changing their identity with it is also a part of the process. Because it's very easy to go back into, into your old sort of ways and your old thinking. Now, I want to just take a quick moment out here to say none of these identities are really true. But if you're going to have false identities, it's better to have ones that are productive and will work for you, right? Um, so, and what do I mean when I say none of these identities are true? What I mean is you're this beautiful, perfect soul and spirit that is deeper and goes beyond the identities that we accept. So you can have a bad identity or you can have a good identity, and neither of those is really you. You are the truth that persists at a deeper level than your identities. And so a lot of the work we do here is at undoing identities. And when we undo an identity, we can come back, and when a new identity is kind of assembled, which happens in our society, it's hard to go out there identitylessness without an identity. The one that gets reconstructed is generally more positive and purposeful. And that's really what we're in the business of doing here. Is we're in the business of tearing down these old identities that don't work. And we're not as concerned about the identities in the parts of your life that are working. It's like, that's fine. Let's leave those alone. But at a certain point, everything in our lives will have to be let go of. Every idea we have about ourselves on our deathbed, et cetera, will have to be thrown away, so to speak. Okay, so this was such an interesting idea to me. This guy saying it's better to sort of lose weight slowly because it gives you a chance for your identity to adapt slowly, to adapt as kind of a fit person. And that makes so much sense, right? And it fits very much in alignment with my community and everything we do. So if you haven't been to my Unblock Your Brilliance community, you can go check that out. There'll be links down in the description below of this finished video. I totally lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Right. So this slowly shifting your identity, and it's better to happen slowly. It's like, I used an example in the email for this is, so I don't know if you guys know, but this is a statistical fact that, a great majority, I'm not sure what the numbers are, but a great majority of people who win the lottery are broke again a year later. Now, the only thing that explains that is what we're talking about here today, and that's perhaps the most vivid example, right? There's nothing that makes sense about that. There's nothing that makes sense is I've been poor my whole life, I get all this money, and I blow it. Unless you look at the underneath and you have this person who has an identity as a poor person. I'm poor. And they're uncomfortable being wealthy. That's the thing, is when someone's unhappy, they don't realize that they're uncomfortable being happy. And they don't realize that they're comfortable in their unhappiness. This is the thing that we're pointing at. And so that's why this community that I have is focused on happiness first. Happiness first, right? Because you have to acclimate yourself to happiness. You have to get comfortable being happy. You have to get comfortable being thin. You have to get comfortable being wealthy. These aren't things. So coming back to my example, sorry to detach from my story and come back so much later, but so I earned $50,000 one year, and I went, oh my gosh, I have a problem. I'm not earning near my potential. And so I did a lot of work on this, and then I went up to 130,000 practically overnight. And you'd think, well, that's great. Well, what happened next? What happened next is I was terrified every day that I didn't belong. See, because I still was identifying as an unsuccessful person. And somehow this unsuccessful person has wriggled their way into this, you know, design environment, right, where I'm making a lot more money. And I fooled everybody. But at any moment, I'm going to get caught. And I remember at lunches, like the first couple of days that I worked there, I literally felt like the police were going to come and drag me out for being an imposter. Right. So that's another example of what we're talking about. And I also, in the couple months that followed, I gained like 30 pounds because I was so stressed all the time because I was terrified. So it wasn't just, oh my gosh, this, my dream has come true. It was, oh my God, I don't belong here. I don't belong in abundance. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time before I started to get comfortable. I would say, like, when did I start getting comfortable? I mean, honestly, it took me 5 or 6 years, before I started to be able to relax in that situation and really create. Maybe not quite that long. Yeah, 5 years. 5 years. That's a long time. And I worked consistently and was hired again and again. So clearly what I was doing was good enough. But I always felt like I wasn't good enough. And that's what I'm talking about. That's this identity shift. And so, and one of the things that really has me thinking about this is because I've now been working out and I haven't properly celebrated this at all, which in some ways is good, right? Because I've now been working, I don't know what it is. It might be close to 390 days in a row. So that's over a year, working out every day. And it's like the way my body's moving through space, it's like I've never worked out my shoulders before and my back and all that. And it's just like, it's slow, but I can feel the change happening. And it's like, there's certain moments when I move and it's just like, oh, I'm moving as somebody who has more muscle. There's more to move around in the upper part of my body than there has been. And it's just like, oh, it feels different. And I noticed my posture is a little different because I'm, working out my body and, in a kind of equal planes and all of that. And so it's like, there is this, and I'm doing it very slowly, very slow. There's not this huge, like, I'm not a movie star getting in shape for a part in 6 months, right? And because I'm 59 years old, right, I have to be smart and sensible, right, about how I work out. But the changes are definitely real and consistent, and it's good that it's happening slow. And the other thing I want to say about change like this that's slow is always better. If you're losing weight, it's much better to lose a half a pound a week or something, much better to do it slowly because the longer you do it, the more it becomes your habit. If you do it quickly, if you do it in a couple of months, if you lose 80 pounds in a couple of months kind of thing, or 30 pounds in a couple of months, well, you've only been doing it a couple of months and it's very easy for those habits to return. But if it takes you a year and a half, you're in the habit of doing things. Plus, talking about fat loss, there's got to be corollaries to this because when you lose weight quickly, your system is going to most likely prioritize losing muscle first, which is counterproductive to the whole situation, right? And I'm trying to think if there's a corollary around wealth or happiness too. But that's another reason why slow is better because, and if you think about it from a muscle standpoint, it's the sort of core and your strength and this identity, right? And so you want to lose weight slowly so that you're just losing fat and you're not sacrificing your muscle, which you need as you get older. You need more muscle. It gets harder to build muscle, right? So by doing it more slowly, you can keep all of the important things intact. So there's a lot of reasons aside just from this identity shift. And it gives your nervous system, because that's the part. So you saw, it's like I became a successful motion graphic artist working 50 weeks out of the year as a freelancer, earning anywhere from $130,000 to $180,000 a year, consistently year on year. And it took 5 years of that before I could relax and feel like, okay, I belong here. That is an example of a nervous system shift and how long that takes to start to say, like, oh, okay, I feel wealthy, or I feel competent. Okay, so I'd like to do a little meditation. Before I do, are there any questions that anybody has about this and about shifting your identity? And one of the things you can do to shift your identity is you can do as you're doing the actions, right? So let's say you're talking about earning more money. Earning more money, for the most part, is a big thing of putting yourself out into the world. So, and seeing yourself in a different light and putting yourself out into the world in a different light. It's like, I want the world to see me differently. And that is an identity change, as we're talking about, right? Is as you're putting it out there. And then you can support that identity change with affirmations and different things like that. And also by connecting to your true self and feeling your true worth. So there's lots of different things you can do to support that identity change, just other than the actions that you're taking to make that change. So there are things beyond just lifting weights or earning money that are going to help that identity change, that I knew nothing about. I thought, I'm going to make a lot of money, and therefore I'm going to be happy. And a big part of the reason why I do this is because it's not really how it works. And so it's like, I want people to be successful, yes, but I want them to be armed with the truth about being successful and happiness, and that happiness, as as trite as it sounds, has to come from within, because it's not going to come from your career or your significant other. It's going to come from inside you, and that's the only place it ever really comes from. Okay, before we do a meditation, any questions? What are those blue wires on the back of my television? Okay, so, all right, so close your eyes. Take a nice big deep breath. And I want you to breathe into the backs of your legs, your hamstrings. And take another breath, and I want you to breathe into your neck muscles on the backside and your upper shoulders. Maybe you carry a lot of tension there. Breathe into that place. Good. And I want you to breathe into your lower back. What's it feel like in there? How are you holding yourself up? How does your back feel? Does it feel tired? Does it feel nice and loose and relaxed? And I want you to breathe into your heels. Breathe all the way down into your heels. Very good. Now I want you to breathe into the very top of your head, the crown of your head. And I want you to picture a line of energy that extends from if you can feel the energy at the top of your head, there is an energy center there. If you can feel that energy, maybe there's a lightness there. I want you to picture a line of energy going up from the top of your head to the heavens. So send some energy up there into the heavens and have it bounce around up there in all that beautiful eternal sunshine, and then have that energy slowly come back down the top of your head, and just like a very gentle wave, just kind of wash all the way down through your body, from the top of your head, all the way down, 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 past your shoulders, past your chest, past your solar plexus, past your stomach, all the way down through your lower back, through your tailbone, through the backs of your legs, through your knees, your shins, your calves, your ankles, all the way down through your toes. and then have it bounce back up at the bottom, your toes, and then come all the way back up in a smooth, gentle, rolling wave. Okay, very good. All right, so I want you to find the place in your body that's the most at peace. If it's your elbow, great. If it's your little toe, great. If it's your solar plexus, fine. If it's the space between your eyes, wonderful. If it's your heart space, great. If it's your stomach, great. And just touch that place and just enjoy it for a second. Just enjoy allowing something that's actually really happening now in this moment to give you pleasure. And I want you to take that place wherever it is, and I want you to imagine from that place inside your body, there's a line of energy that runs to the center of your body. So now you're going deeper into that feeling, deeper inside. And feel, if you can, that it connects to this deeper sense of yourself, this deeper truth. And now notice this deeper sense of yourself. Picture it running down through the center of your body, all the way down, out your sort of tailbone, down into the ground, all the way into the earth. And I want you to follow that line of energy. And so now the center of your being is now outside of your body, all the way down in the center of the earth. So put your attention there and feel that it's actually not just an imagination, that you are, in reality, your soul, your spirit is that big. And if that's too far for you, just imagine the center of your being just a couple of feet underground. And notice that you can center your consciousness outside of your body. So now try to put the center of your consciousness above your body, like behind your head, like by 5 to 6 feet. You are not contained in your body. You are not your body. And you are not any of the identities at all. So, okay, so from this place, from this center that's above your body, 5 feet outside, come back there and just hang out there and feel how good it feels to be centered here, even outside your body. Now, I want you to find the identity inside of you that's the most suffering and in the most pain. And I want you to snap to it. The one that feels like the biggest loser, or I can't get anywhere, or I can never win, or it's not happening for me. And I want you to notice the difference in tonality, in vibration, in sadness, in emotion, in density of emotion. There's a heaviness and a weightiness to it. And feel where that is in your body. Just feel that for a moment. Okay, great. Now come back and snap outside your body again. It can come back to the same place, or it can be behind you, or it can be way down in the center of the earth. And just feel the lightness of that being. Feel how lovely it is to be in the quiet presence of your own being. Now snap back to the part of you that's in the most pain. The part of you that's in a pain is a separate identity from who and what you really are. And it's an identity that's been with you since you were a small child. that received a hurt way back then. And it's been stuck in this loop. And we have a bunch of these different identities, and these different identities take us over, take us over mind, body, and spirit at different times. And so this identity as this non-successful person, this non-wealthy person, this non-loved person, it's a false identity. Because now snap back to that center outside of your body. Notice its lightness. Notice that it's made of love and peace. That's what you are. Now you have all these parts that say, that's not what I am. I'm this person with this name. I'm Sarah or Ted or Michael or Fred. And you're not. These are the ideas in your head that weigh you down. Now, just because you're not these identities doesn't mean you cannot fulfill all your roles, doesn't mean you can't respond to the name that you were given. Your intelligence knows how to handle that. But what we're working on here is you getting aligned with the truth of who you are, your true spirit. And we let go of these identities, starting with the ones that are the most painful. That's how we prioritize them, and let go of those first. And then eventually we'll get to the ones that are positive and realize those aren't true either. We learn to step back from all these and detach, and this is a very healing and happy place to be. Okay, so come back into your chest, into your solar plexus, into the center of your body, and just feel if you can feel any of that good vibration. Of your true identity. And see if you can separate. And look, what I always recommend is look at this false identity, the one that's in pain, as a completely separate entity, even like a separate person. Because then you can work with it better. When you believe that you are this thing, you're trying to fix it. But when you can step back from it and just watch it, you can love it and counsel it and support it much better when you know it's not you. Okay. Right. Well, thank you, Susie, for your comment. She says, I appreciate how the word identity change describes how it can apply to various areas of ourselves and ways we define who we are. Yeah, I think learning how to hold all of that lightly, the ways that we define who we are, and never losing our true sense of who we are. For me, in a lot of ways, that's the point of life, is really realizing who and what we really are, because that's where happiness lies, in realizing our own worth. Okay, so having gone through that meditation, any questions before we kind of wrap up for today? Angie says, great meditation. True self is so peaceful. Yes. And for those of you who are watching this later, where it's difficult for you to touch your true self and feel that true identity, there's really nothing more important in life than learning how to get in touch with that. And sometimes, thank you. I'm glad you like the meditation. That's what the community is for, to help you to touch that true self, and then allowing that true self to guide you to more intuitive ways that are correct for you to be happy and express yourself and make money, etc. And so if you're having trouble with that, come and join us and hang out with us and learn how to really tap into your deepest inner wisdom. Okay, I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And I will see you soon, next Thursday at the latest. Cheers.